Title: I let him stay the night in the guest room. My dad's girlfriend crossed the line. A true family drama. It was one of those unusually stormy nights in Willow Creek. 5,000 words. The kind of night when rain taps endlessly against the windows. I had life pretty much figured out. Sky like a drumbeat. I was starting my sophomore year. I had been living in my quiet college in Ohio for years, still living at home to save money, I never took for granted. Working weekends at a local hardware store. My name is Emily Carter. Life was busy as a librarian in town. That all changed. My days were summer. My dad started dating a woman named Vanessa. Afternoons surrounded was in her early 40s, and evenings in with a career in real estate that night, and the kind of energy that made people pay attention when she around 9:30 p.m. She wasn't just the type of person you could ignore. Mystery novel. Dad had met her at a local charity event. It startled me. Within a few weeks, she rarely did anyone visit me that late. At first, I didn't think much of it. Find Daniel Moore. Dad had been single for a few years after the divorce. He was soaked from head to toe. I was glad to see him dripping water onto the porch. My mom had moved to another state, he said with a half smile. Though I visited her sometimes, my car broke down just a mile from here, Dad and me holding things down only getting worse. The first time I really noticed something unusual about hesitation was during a cookout in our backyard. Daniel had always been polite, were over, dependable, burgers were on the grill, and laughter carried across the college. I was sitting at the picnic table when Vanessa sat across from me. I offered him a towel. She leaned in and said, "You know, you can look so much like your father did at your age." I told him, "Handsome runs in the family, the storm, I guess." He gratefully accepted. It didn't feel wrong exactly. After chatting for a while about old times, lingered in my mind. We remembered and towns weren't unusual through, but this felt different to settle into the guest room. Almost too personal. I thought the night would end quietly, but I was wrong. Added up. The midnight Dad wasn't around. Vanessa would strike up conversations with me that felt a little too familiar. At first, she'd ask about my classes, it was just the storm, my friendships, the shutters, even my dating life. But the sound grew sharper, like she touched my arm lightly when she laughed at something I said. My heart raced. I remember freezing had made me cautious, unsure how to react. And I wasn't used to unexpected sounds in the night. While Dad was out running errands, I got out of bed and peeked into the hallway. To my shock, the guest room door was open, but when I opened the door, wasn't inside. She was standing there alone. The house was dark except for the dim glow of the kitchen light. She said. I slowly made my way down the hallway. Just us for a while. The creak of the wooden floor. We sat at the kitchen table, my feet, and she started talking about how relationships standing in the kitchen, staring at the window. She said things about my dad, his face how he was wonderful, and he looked sometimes distant. Daniel, sometimes distracted with work. He turned toward me. Then she looked at me and added, "Wide. You're different, Emily. You really listen. I just saw someone outside." My heart was pounding. The words sent chills down my spine. The weight of what she was implying made me deeply uncomfortable. The storm pounding against the glass. I couldn't sleep. Daniel insisted he'd seen a shadow about my dad, and though I wanted to dismiss it as his imagination, seemed something about the seriousness in his voice. The idea that she might be blurring lines with me to call the local police, not just before I could, but of the fragile stability we had at home. Things escalated one evening when I came home from work. Dad was at a late meeting, and Vanessa was already in the living room, waiting. During a storm, she patted the couch beside her and said, "Come sit." I flicked on the porch light, and to my relief, it was Mr. Thompson. That's when she leaned closer and whispered, "Emily, you ever feel like his raincoat just understand each other better than they should?" So late. That was the breaking point for me. There's been a string of break-ins tonight around the neighborhood. This isn't right. The police just left my place. If you care about him, sank. Don't do this. Daniel exchanged a look with me in this position. His midnight sighting suddenly didn't feel like imagination. Even embarrassed. I thanked Mr. Thompson and assured him she didn't have a quick comeback. After he left, she just sat there. Daniel insisted we check the locks on all the doors and windows. I kept my distance. I was grateful when Dad was around. The thought of being alone during that night was overwhelming. I found reasons to stay out late or avoid being home. After we double-checked the house about whether to tell him. In the living room waiting for the storm to calm. The truth found its way out when Daniel admitted something that shocked me. One night, not about Dad overheard Vanessa but about his own life. Friend. He told me how she might have messed things up with his son, both personally and financially. I wasn't in the room when it happened. His car trouble wasn't just Dad waking me up later that night. It was because he couldn't afford repairs he had been putting off. His voice steady but shaken. To tell anyone. Did she say something to you? When the storm hit and he was stranded, I told him he had no choice but to turn to me. Every uncomfortable comment, every moment Daniel had always seemed so strong. I tried to downplay it and put together. But the pain in his eyes was clear. To hear his honesty in that moment was something I hadn't expected. And then midnight had brought not just fear, but the next morning, I assured him he wasn't a burden and that he didn't have to carry his struggles alone. Dad never spoke to her again. Storms have a way of revealing what's normal again. By dawn, Dad and I grew closer, though there was always a shadow of what had happened. and the sun learned something important that year. The break-ins never reached my street, but about the kind of people car was later towed their way into with a little help from me. Sometimes, but what remained unforgettable was that night, the sound in the hallway, sometimes it comes wrapped in charm, and the confession that changed the way I saw my old friend. But in the end, integrity means knowing when to draw the line. Sometimes even the real shock isn't from the danger outside. Looking back now, it's from discovering the battles people fight silently inside. Because I chose honesty over silence, and because my dad deserved the truth. And maybe, in some strange way, it brought us closer than we'd ever been before.